So it's Saturday, woke up this morning, it's 2 below outside, so I'm not doing much outside other than checking on the chickens and doing just the basic care for the animals. But what I wanted to do today is just jump in to a video that I wanted to do for a while now. It's basically just a rundown on what it takes to raise chickens and the best way to go about it. So the first thing you want to do is figure out which breed you want to have, and you're definitely not limited to one breed. The first thing you're going to want to look at is the climate that they can tolerate. Some chicken breeds can tolerate much better range of climates than others. Here in Minnesota, we have freezing temperatures. It's below zero right now. And there's just certain breeds that just don't do well in those temperatures. So that's definitely something you want to keep in mind. That should help you narrow it down pretty quick to a more select breed if you live in an area like I live in here in Minnesota. And then another thing you want to keep in mind is the temperament. Some chickens tend to be nicer, more snuggly than others. You know, if you have kids, that's something you want to look at. And then another thing is the egg production and size. So some chickens lay more eggs than others. If you're primarily getting them, I assume, for laying eggs, then that might have a factor. It might not. And then another big thing you want to keep in mind is the size that they are full grown. So we've had everything from Silkies, and then I think the biggest ones we've had are actually just Rhode Islands. But there's chickens that are much bigger than that. So the main thing with size is the bigger they are, the bigger the eggs, but the more space they're going to need and the more food they eat. So definitely something to think about when you're looking at different breeds. So another question is, do you need a rooster? You don't. You don't need a rooster. Hens will lay eggs without a rooster. However, if you want to hatch your eggs in the future, you will need a rooster to fertilize the eggs. And another thing to keep in mind too is the rooster will provide some amount of protection, not full protection against larger predators, but they will protect against smaller prey, maybe like a cat or something they might be able to scare off. But that's something to keep in mind. And then the other thing is make sure that you check your local zoning with your city or your county or whatever, and make sure they allow you to have a rooster, because there's a lot of places like here in Minnesota, when you get closer to the cities, that don't allow you to have roosters because they can be loud and they do crow throughout the day. They don't just crow in the morning for a little bit. They do crow in the morning, in the night sometimes, throughout the day. It's random. So now you figured out the breed you want. Are you going to hatch them from eggs, or are you going to get them as chicks? If this is your first time, I recommend getting chicks. I don't recommend hatching them from eggs your first time, just simply because then you don't need to deal with buying a hatcher. Because those can run from $100, $200, depending on the quality. Anyway, so it's up to you. You can start out with hatching them or not. So where do you get them? We're lucky that we have a local place that's a feed and seed store that's not too far from us, and they have tons of chickens all the time. We can tell them what we want, and they just have them ready for us. So that's where we get them. So if you're lucky enough to have a place like that where you can just go and pick up the chicks and just drive them straight from there to your house, that's the best option. However, if there's nothing around you and you do have to mail order them, you can do that. You can have issues though, so just remember that they might not all survive the trip, or none of them might survive the trip. So just make sure you get them from a reputable place that has quality chicks. Hopefully has a warranty, so if something does happen in the mail, you can get replacements. So just do your research on that. So the next thing is, you got your chicks. You're going to want to do this before you get your chicks. You're going to want to get your brooder set up. The easiest thing to do, I've found, is what we've been doing for years, is we just have just storage totes. So the only thing you really need is a decent sized storage tote. It depends on how many chicks you have, obviously. And then we just use wood shavings, and then you need a feeder and a waterer and heat. They're going to need heat. There's heat mats, there's elevated little platform things that heat, but we've used a heat mat before, and then we also use a light. And you got to remember, with heat comes a risk of a fire. So definitely, whatever you use, make sure it's safe as possible. And also in your water, when they're real small, you're gonna want to put some kind of marble, or we use those like little glass beads that you'll find in like people put them in like plants or whatever. Just little glass beads. And what that does is, if they happen to fall into the water, they're able to get out. If they do fall in and they can't get out, they might drown. So you're going to want to do that until they get big enough to get in and out if they do jump in there by themselves. So now your chickens are fairly grown up. You might be wondering, when do we move them outside? So what you want to look for is, they're going to have all their adult feathers. They're going to lose that fluffy little chick fur. And usually it's around 6 to 10 weeks. And then you're going to want to keep an eye on the temperatures, especially at night. You don't want to get too cold for them. So those are the main things. 6 to 10 weeks. Make sure they have their adult feathers, and make sure the temperature doesn't get too cold for them outside. Okay, so now that they're big enough to go outside, it's warm enough outside, they got all their feathers, the next thing you're going to want to do is bring them out to their coop and their run. So we'll start out with the run. So typically what a run is it's an enclosed area with a roof, preferably, that's safe for the chickens to run around, that protects them from most weather and predators. Predators is the main thing. So what we have on our run is, it's caged in with like a fencing material, like a roll fencing material, and then it goes all the way from the roof. We have a metal roof, so it goes all the way from the roof down to the ground, and in the ground about 6 to 8 inches. And that provides protection from any predators that choose to maybe try to dig underneath. So if they start digging, they keep hitting fencing, and hopefully they just give up. We've never had any issue of anything even trying to get in there, so we've been pretty fortunate in that. So with inside the run, you'll have the coop. And what the coop is, that's the main area that they stay. It keeps them out of the weather. It gives them a place to roost. And they'll have nest boxes, nesting material. You can keep their food in there. Some people keep their water in there. It's basically like their little chicken house. Well, so I hope this helped you out a little better if you're looking at getting into chickens. I love chickens. We're always going to have chickens. They're the number one farm animal we're always going to have here. They're fun to have around. They're fun to watch. The eggs are amazing. They're pretty easy to take care of. They're pretty cheap to take care of. They're cheap to replace. So I say go for it. It's definitely worth it. So if you like this video, be sure to share it, like it, subscribe, all that good stuff. The more you do that, the more the algorithm promotes this video, so more people can find it. So yeah, so take care. Till next time.